Live with CDP Sports Talk, a weekly sports and entertainment podcast sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet. Live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and LinkedIn. And on audio via Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Anchor FM, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Radio Public, and TuneIn. Now, here's your host, Chris Palme.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Season 7, Episode 52 of Live with CDP Sports Talk, sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles, or give them a call at 519-824-0210 and tell them Chris Palme sent you. And you can also email the dealership at info@barrycullen.com. I hope everyone's doing well on this Wednesday, March 27th, 2024, and we're getting very close to the OHL playoffs this weekend, and I'll bring on my guest in 1 minute. As I do always, Live with CDP Sports Talk is on weeknights from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. now on CKRT, Border City Radio in Windsor, and also on WQEE at WQEE 99.1 FM from weeknights from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. as well in Noonan, Georgia, the home of Southern Talk and Sports. I'm excited about my guest today. This is his third time on Live with CDP Sports Talk, and we're going to bring him on right now. And he's the manager of, he is the media relations manager of the Erie Otters, TV and radio play-by-play voice for the Erie Otters, and he just celebrated his 200th OHL broadcast, I believe, on March 21st, and I'm excited to have Shawn Bednard on. He's also a big Detroit Lions fan, and I'm also going to have to ask him about his bulldog name, Ham, that is in his Twitter's bio as well. Good afternoon, Shawn. How you doing, buddy?
I couldn't be better, Chris. It's good to see you for a third time.
It's been a while. It's been over a year.
Has it been that long?
Yes, January 2023.
Well, it's good to be back regardless of how long it's been. It's always a pleasure to chat with you, and I always enjoy our conversations.
Thank you. This bulldog you have, is he just recently new?
I've had him for a while, but really just publicizing him of late. But
Okay.
He's a rescue. We got him. We saved him. He saved us, however you want to say it, back in 2019. And he has been causing a fun bit of chaos in our life ever since.
So I know his name is Ham. So that have anything to do with the Hamilton Bulldogs?
It does not, but it was quite a coincidence. And, I feel more comfortable calling him Hamilton the Bulldog since they moved to Brantford. So they did my dog and I quite a service in their move.
Dogs are great, and I do some volunteer work with the local Humane Society in the Cambridge area as well. Hey, I wanted to ask you this as well. What are your thoughts on your Detroit Lions? They had such a terrific season, and I know you're a lifelong Lions fan.
Yeah, no, I'm getting really excited now about next season, seeing the moves that we've had, seeing the way that we've picked up. And I'm really excited for the city of Detroit in just about a month's time to have the NFL draft. I think it's going to be really big for the community. I know it's going to bring a lot more excitement for the team early on in the spring. And, I got spoiled this season with the success we had in the playoffs, and hopefully next season is the season, as they say.
Were you able, out of your busy schedule doing the Otter games, able to get down to a Lions game at Ford Field this year?
I was not. If we would have seen the Packers beat the 49ers, then they would have played at Ford Field, and that would have been the weekend that I would have been able to go. We were up in the Sioux when they played in the game against the Bucks, and we were on the bus. We had just got on the bus, start of the fourth quarter, and people were giving me, they were razzing me. They're like, oh, I don't know, they might blow it here. And I was like, no, we'll be all right. And then when they got it done, end of the fourth quarter, and got the win to move on to the NFC Championship, I was like, yeah, let's go.
Now, being in Erie, you're not far from Cleveland or Pittsburgh or Buffalo. If you had to say which team is number one in Erie that you figure is the most supported?
Man, it's tough. It depends really on where you are in Erie. I would think Pittsburgh overall probably has the strongest seating here, but you see a lot of Buffalo and maybe not as much Cleveland for some reason, despite it being the actual closest city of the three. But I'd say Buffalo and Pittsburgh definitely dominate. But the Browns fans who are here, they're very loyal to their team.
One of my friends, his name's Taylor Phillips. He has his own podcast show in Michigan, um, the Michigan Sports Truth podcast. He is from Michigan, so he wanted to say hi to you as well. And it's exciting times. I think this is the first time all three U.S. OHL teams have made the playoffs in the same year.
First time since Plymouth moved to Flint, at the very least. So I know, again, being from Michigan, like you mentioned, seeing both their teams be in is exciting enough for that corridor of I-75. But then for us to be in the mix once again, finally, it's thrilling. And, I think we talk this year a lot, especially about the importance of talking about junior hockey and major junior hockey in the United States, especially with the backdrop of Saginaw hosting Canada's biggest prize in hockey. And I think to see the entire contingent of American OHL teams make the postseason, it's not just great for the league in terms of being able to, expand its brand south of the border, but it's huge for these American cities who, maybe they tend to think of the NCAA or the USHL when they think of, that high level amateur hockey. So for us, it's just another opportunity to be able to put our flag in the ground and say the OHL is here, and we're trying to do what we can for the United States.
Oh, hopefully your team will be there too, the Otters, and they've been playing well lately. Hey, and I was going to ask you this as well. Can you see in the future? I don't want to put you on the spot here. In the future, that the Erie Otters even maybe possibly bid for a Memorial Cup in the future?
Man, we actually had some OHL brass down here during our school day game, and a lot of them had mentioned in some meetings with our team brass themselves, and said, Erie really would be a good community for it. And, I would like to think someday the flagship city, especially with the renovations we've had since our last opportunity to be able to host it as a high level team, the way that downtown has really expanded, the hotels that have popped up along the bayfront, the continued focus on family friendly fun. I I think Erie's as good of a city as any of them in the Ontario Hockey League. And, I think the fan base here is rabid. It's passionate. You got three major airports that can get you within an hour of the area. So, I'd love to see it someday. And I think this community deserves it. Obviously, there are very, very few cities in the CHL that don't deserve the Memorial Cup. But, an organization like this that's been a storied for as much as it has been in the short time that it's been around, it would be so terrific to see, how far Saginaw can carry the ball for American OHL and CHL teams to be able to keep the Memorial Cup coming south of the border. So we'll certainly see.
I'm still hoping for a fourth U.S. franchise at some point for the Ontario Hockey League.
I could tell you just from a travel perspective, if Cleveland or Buffalo, or even if they want to bring back Plymouth, if any of those three want to come back, or come to the fold all together. And, I know as the continued discussions happen with, the possible collaboration between the NCAA and the CHL, I also think like, how could we get a organization like the team down in Youngstown, Ohio, call them up from the USHL and get them to joining with the big dogs up here in the major juniors of the Canadian Hockey League. So, I'd love a fourth American team, but if I'm being real biased, I'd love to see it like the WHL where they have an all U.S. division.
Hopefully, and we do have a viewer, Steve Bell from the Windsor
Oh,
Spitfires. Yeah, Beller. So I know it was a tough season for the Windsor Spitfires, but I told Steve, you know what, all the OHL franchises, except maybe London, have those tough years, and I'm sure the Spitfires will come back because they're one of the most successful CHL franchises, and they had a great run. And this year it was kind of a down year, but they'll be back.
Oh, yeah. And they're not just one of the premier franchises and organizations for on ice performance. When you got a guy like Steve Bell or Manny Pava as your radio broadcast team, I like your odds against any other media department.
And speaking of the playoffs, the Otters have playing their best hockey in March. I think in the months of March, overall 7-1-2, and they've won 5 in a row and 6 in a row on the road. And they take on those Kitchener Rangers, my next door neighbors, starting Friday night. I know the Rangers won the season series 4-2, but the Otters won the last 2 games, and I just wanted to get your thoughts on the Otters, why they've played so much better hockey in March heading into the first round.
It's tough to pinpoint exactly one thing, especially with the goaltending interesting situations that we've had. But I think it's really come down to the defense has finally bought fully into the system that Ken Paroff has wanted to run for this team, and our offense is just clicking the way that it's supposed to at the exact right time. So when you combine those two things, plus winnable efforts every night in net between Ethan Frazier, Jacob Gibbons, Charlie Burns when he was here, and a litany of other guys who have filled in, of course, not to exclude Ben Gaudreau, who carried most of the weight the first half. It's a recipe for success. And I think once Erie had the opportunity to say, okay, we have a mental hump right here. We have to get over this hump if we want to solidify ourselves as a playoff team, because February was tough on these guys. And once they finally found consistency and the consistent taste of winning and what it means to win and to win multiple games, from there they've been, I don't want to say unstoppable, but they've downed some pretty solid competition. I say overall, they prevented Saginaw from winning the Hamilton Spectator Trophy. They put themselves in a position to have the London Knights help them out a little bit by downing Guelph to where they could avoid the 12-hour road trip to the Sioux and take on a much closer and much more familiar foe in the Kitchener Rangers. So when you have the recipe of experienced coaching under Stan Butler, guys who have a litany of knowledge and wealth of knowledge, and Ken Paroff and Wes Wolf on the coaching bench alongside him, and players who just have that hunger to say, okay, we don't want to sneak in. We don't want to be the 8th seed. We want to finish as high as we can. I think all those things combined for this to be a really strong finish and getting hot at the right time.
Absolutely, and that's the difference between them getting the 5th seed and Guelph getting the 6th seed.
100%, and I think with Guelph too, they were an important part of our puzzle for the Erie Otters, not just in the fact that Erie won the season series against them, but the coaching staff during the down part of early 2024, when Erie was finding consecutive losses or struggling to put any wins together, they use them in a sense as a motivation of saying, hey, don't focus on the fact that Sarnia and Flint are picking up steam or that Owen Sound's picking up steam, but focus on the teams that are not Owen Sound, but focus on the teams that are ahead of us that aren't continuing to gain steam. We're sure 4 points out of a playoff spot, but we're also 6 points away from being 5th in the OHL West. So they were able to use, their own misfortune and juxtapose it with other teams' misfortunes to be able to create that turnaround. And, you find motivation in little victories where you can. And I think, for the befuddlement, if you will, of Guelph, them being able to not consistently find success during a time when Erie was struggling to find success helped to lead to motivation for the Otters to say, hey, if they're in the same boat that we are, let's sink their boat and let's jump over them. So, like you said, that's the difference. And being able to get points in 9 of your 10 games in March, that doesn't hurt too much either.
Wanted to ask you this. What are your thoughts on the Otters acquiring Ben Gaudreau from the Sting? Because he had a tremendous playoff run with Sarnia last year, leading them to the Western Conference Final for the first time in their 30-year history.
If we didn't get Ben Gaudreau, I genuinely do not know what this season would have looked like. And that's no disrespect to any of the goaltenders that we had before him. Nolan Lalonde obviously has proved himself as a very capable number 2, or a capable 1-2, 1A, 1B, however you want to say it, with the Saginaw Spirit. His record indicates that. And, they say sometimes that greener pastures are better for all. So I think with Benny, for him coming here, it was interesting, I think, for us, because when you're an overager with the stature and the status of Ben Gaudreau, 2 gold medals in the last few years, one of the best goalies, I think, in the Ontario Hockey League. You kind of have the opportunity to say, I want to go here or I don't want to go here. And it just comes down to a matter of the asking price. So for us to get him, I thought was a big piece in an aggressive one and saying, hey, it's not win now, but this is a playoff season, and we need to solidify and assure that we're in the conversation at the end of the season. Past that, just being able to have someone as cool and calm as collected as Ben Gaudreau every single night, and at points literally every single night, carrying the weight of the team for you, especially early on in the season when there were probably about 3 or 4 rookie defensemen who were still just settling into the OHL. Having a consistent guy in the back who could stop those breakaway opportunities or odd man rushes for you gave this team a lot of confidence. And I think everyone shared the collective, breath of, or losing the breath or shortness of breath when Ben went down. And it turned out it was a little more than just a minor nick that it turned out to be. Obviously the injury that he does still deal with. But he led them enough of the way for the defense to be able to get comfortable and was able to see it through, where he put Erie in a good enough position for them to battle for a top 5 seed. And because of the, leadership that he still has still around the rink, even if he's not on the ice, continue to be a calming presence for the guys. And, has been one of the reasons that I think Jacob Gibbons and Ethan Frazier have found the success that they have in that, with all credit to them as well for just being straight up good goaltenders.
And put you on the spot. Who's starting game 1 for the Otters Friday night at the Odd?
If I had to take a wild guess, I would say Ethan Frazier. We've seen a lot this season that Stan Butler likes to go with the hot glove and likes to keep with streaky kind of people. So when you're seeing goal scorers with a lot of goals of late, he'll start them. They'll be top line guys. And Ethan Frazier, I think, closed out the last 5 or 6 games for us and gave us really solid opportunities in every single one of those games. A few outliers there where, it was a 6-goal, 7-goal performance against here, but he would come back right with you with 3 goals against from a very potent Kitchener team. First career shutout against the Flint Firebirds, a team that's in a playoff position. So if I had to assume, I would say it would be him. And knowing what he's been able to do in his first ever handfuls of OHL games as a 21-year-old rookie, I'm excited to see what him or what Jacob Gibbons can do in their first playoff games.
Is Ben still around the team, and is he mentoring these younger goalies too?
He's still around the team, still an everyday kind of guy, except for, when other things come up with, certain medical appointments. But the expectation and the hope still is that at some point in the playoffs, Ben Gaudreau will make a return. But, regardless of if he can or he can't, I think his presence and his leadership is such a huge thing. Again, you mentioned it at the top, he's a guy who helped lead Sarnia to a further point than that organization had ever and has ever been to in the Western Conference Final. So with him being able to say, hey, listen, like, these are the things we need to do to be successful, and playoffs are an all different animal. There's only 3 Otters players who have playoff experience. And it's Alexi Davio, Sam Alfano, and it's Ben Gaudreau. So there's going to be a lot of career firsts when those first goals happen, when those first wins happen. So being able to have a guy like that who's been able to go almost the entire distance, he's been critical for this team as they go in the closing stretch.
How's the injury report look like going into the series against Kitchener?
As we mentioned, Ben, of course, still battling his, rehabbing and hoping to have him on a timeline that would allow him an opportunity to come back. Carey Terrance missed the last couple of games with a lower body injury. Expectation is early first round return for him.
And that's a huge loss too. 29 goals he scored this year, including 5 shorthanded goals. So some guys are going to have to step up in his absence.
Yeah, they will. And I think what's been good, in a silver lining is with Carey down. And obviously, the sooner we can get him back and the sooner we can get him scoring, especially in the postseason, where I just imagine he's going to be such a dynamic piece. With him down, we've seen a lot of guys really try and take that top spot and fight for that opportunity. I think, We mentioned Pano Femus, 25, 26 goal scorer this season, was just on the outside looking in for top goal scorer on the team. Sam Alfano has frankly been a beast in the month of March. Dylan Edwards, 22 goals in 37 games, and he played his entire season in the second half after Christmas break. There's a lot of guys on this team who want to fit the billing as leading scorer, top goal guy, dangerous weapon. And when they can keep going and Carey can come back, this is going to be it's going to be a shot of adrenaline right into the main vein for the Erie Otters offense.
Overall, obviously, they lost the season series to Kitchener, 4-2, but they won the last 2 games. What were the differences in the 2 Otter wins than the previous 4 games they lost to Kitchener?
That part is a little bit of an anomaly, and I asked our offensive coach and power play coach Wes Wolf about that today, actually. And it came down to a few things, but ultimately, it's just now that this team is a lot more mature, they've clicked, and I think there's a little bit of a thing where when you do see a team so often, you start to figure them out, and that's one thing that excites me about where the Erie Otters are now. And it's worth mentioning too. Kitchener was the number 1 team in the OHL at the Christmas break. And they were quite frankly a buzzsaw. And they made a couple of trades at the trade deadline that, I don't want to say it hurt them by any means because they definitely got a lot of good players out of it. But I think the chemistry component took a little bit of a wonky turn. And obviously this team, and I mean this with all intended respect to Coach Ahokas and the entire team over there, they were playing a little bit with house money. Expectations from pundits around the league were that this was going to be a team on the outside looking in for the playoffs. So to be at any point during the season a top-ranked team is frankly a testament to what GM Mike McKenzie and what the coaching staff and the players on the ice have been able to do over there. With that being said, when the chemistry kind of faltered a little bit, I think it was the same time that the Erie Otters were starting to hit their chemistry, and you had these 2 intersections to where Erie was able to take advantage of it. And it's impressive to think about because there was a game this season where Kitchener put 10 goals up against the Otters in a 10-3 win at the Odd. And in the last 2 games, Erie has allowed 4 total goals against them and scoring 10 of their own. So the table, I don't want to say is completely flipped, and I don't want to say the tables are completely turned to where, now it's Erie's series to lose, but I think Erie's riding in with a good bout of momentum. And, we talked about how good this team has been on the road in the second half and how good this team's been on the road in the last month, going perfect in March as a whole. I think if Erie steals one of the games out of one of the toughest environments in the Odd, there's going to be a swing of momentum, especially when you got to come back to the Erie Insurance Arena, where if you're Kitchener, you struggled the last 2 games. And for anybody, you're going into a hostile environment, a passionate fan base, and a place that is more operative of a rock concert than a traditional OHL game.
What are the media expectations in Erie, and how is the fan base feeling about this Otters team going in the first round against Kitchener?
I think there's a nervous optimism. I think that would be the proper wording for it. I think Erie has proven this season that it's not so much about the opponent as much as their effort. We've seen them take down top teams before. They split the season series with the London Knights, who obviously won the Hamilton Spectator. They downed a lot of powers in the Eastern Conference and sweeping Sudbury, splitting with Brantford, giving good efforts against the Oshawa Generals. And being very competitive against teams in the West. Obviously, Saginaw being able to win the most recent series against them, who was also competing for the Hamilton Spectator Trophy. So I think, you try not to get too confident, especially for Erie being a team that hasn't seen the playoffs in 7 years. A team, when it gets to the postseason, will be mostly rookies because you've only had 3 players who've gone to the postseason. But when you factor in the success the team's had of late, when you factor in a coach like Stan Butler leading the way, I think there's a reasonable doubt to say that Erie is not cautiously optimistic. So, obviously you can't win or lose the series in game 1, but I think game 1 will be really indicative of how this series is going to end up. I don't think we're going to see any blowouts in this series. If I had to make a guess, I would say we're probably going to see 1 or 2 playoff games. And, realistically, this is a series that I think is going to go 6. And I would not be surprised to see it go the full length. I think you give either of these teams a chance on any given night, and I think they have the chance to take a win. So you talk about 4 and 5 being the most even playoff matchup you can get. I think you're looking at 2 teams who are in really even positions right now. But, for Erie having the opportunity to come in hot where Kitchener is coming in a little colder, I think it's an opportunity to jump out in game 1 for the Otters.
When do the Otters and yourself head out to the Kitchener for game 1? Do you guys leave on Friday or Thursday night?
We'll be leaving tomorrow, afternoon, Thursday afternoon. No practice. We'll have a morning practice here at the Erie Insurance Arena, and then that'll be it for activities for the day. Morning skate Friday, and then game time on Friday evening. So, try and do what we can. And I think our travel coordinator's done a really good job of this. Try to mitigate what bus legs or travel legs or any of that exhaustion that comes with just being on a bus for a few hours can do to you. And, I think having the opportunity to get a full night's sleep and, get a morning skate in day of the first game, I think it'll be big for the young guys.
How long of a bus ride? About 5 hours, 4.5 hours?
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad, especially considering what it could have been against the Sioux,
Yeah.
or even Saginaw for that matter. It's about 4 hours, and I'm knocking on wood as I say this. We usually have no issues at the border. They're
Yes.
so used to seeing us at the Peace Bridge, or
Same here.
yeah, they're so used to seeing us that usually it's about a 10-minute process all said and done. So, if weather's our way, if the wind's at our back and we get a little luck, then hopefully should be a pretty short bus ride tomorrow. But I know anticipation and anxiety is going to be high, so it might even feel a little bit longer.
Are you okay for a few more questions, a few more minutes?
Absolutely.
Okay, Shawn, I just wanted to get your thoughts on head coach Stan Butler and the job the coaching staff has done this year with this young Otters team.
I haven't heard Stan Butler's name in any Coach of the Year conversations. And, I understand it, frankly, with what Oshawa's coach has done, and obviously what the Hunters have done again in London. And, of course, what Kitchener's coach has been able to do. But he took a team that finished last place in the Western Conference last year by a pretty good margin and took them to number 5 in the Western Conference. And it wasn't able to do it with a consistent starting goaltender in the second half, because after Ben Gaudreau went down, it was Bo Porosky, it was Sergei Litvinov, it was Jacob Gibbons, Charlie Burns, Ethan Frazier, and I'm sure I'm missing 1 or 2 goalies who had to step in. So, it was a logistical nightmare to try and figure out not just who's going to be in net for us, but how are we going to win these games? So, Coach Stan celebrated his 800th CHL win just a little bit ago. I think that the job that they have done, especially first-year assistant coach Ken Peroff, Wes Wolf, who's been around this organization for a long time, and Adrian Volpe, who's had to get acquainted with a lot of new goaltenders. I think they've done a very good job in being able to mitigate what really could have been a colossal fall-off after Ben Gaudreau went down, and navigated it not to just making the playoffs, but a top 5 finish. So I think they've done a really solid job. And, the messaging coming in season 1 at the end of last season for Stan Butler was, we're basically going to have to rip apart the foundation, and we're starting the house over from new. And to go from him coming in early February of last year to a last place team, now to turning them into a top 10, top 11 team in the OHL, I don't think you can discredit the job that whole staff has done.
And that is going to help the young team having a veteran coaching staff and someone like Stan Butler, who's been around the league for many decades, to help some of these kids. Wanted to get your thoughts quickly on your opponent, the Kitchener Rangers, and who are some of their key players to watch out for in this series.
Yeah, Kitchener is an impressive group, because it seems like no matter where you look on the lineup, they have someone who has been or is a star in this league. I think players that really stood out from the last couple of times we played, obviously Philip Michar, I mean, you got to talk about him if you're going to talk about anybody. I was really impressed with, I think, the way that Cameron Mercer was flying around. I know they're waiting to get Trent Swick back into the mix. Defensively, Hunter Brustevich, he's really done it all. I mean, he was, 1 point away from breaking the single season defensive scoring record for the Kitchener Rangers. And, I'm thankful for the Erie Otters' sake that he didn't get the chance to do it against us on that last game. Olivier Savard, I thought was a really good pickup from Barrie and from Saginaw. There's a lot of good players on this team. There's a lot of dangerous pieces. And this is a team also that is not too far removed from being one of the first ever OHL teams to be an 8 seed to sweep a number 1 seed last year in the Windsor Spitfires. So that's in the back of their head, certainly. And also it's the fact that, again, we talked about it. I don't want to say they're playing with house money. I don't think it's fair to the job that they've done over there behind the coaching staff. But, they weren't supposed to be in this position, and they're in this position. And I fully expect the odd to be sold out, and I fully expect this team to be flying around. So I'm really excited to see. I think this is a great series. I have a lot of respect for the Kitchener Rangers organization. I think top to bottom, from hockey ops to business ops, they run a great program, a great operation. And I just think this is going to be a really good series. I think this is going to be one that is going to turn a lot of maybe casual hockey fans. I don't think there's any casual hockey fans in Kitchener, Ontario, and I know there's not many in Erie, PA, but I think this is one that if you come out for one of these playoff games in person, you're going to be pretty fired up about coming out to the next one.
Do you expect some of the Otters fan base to travel down from Erie to Kitchener at the odd?
Absolutely. I frankly even think that if we played in the Sioux, I can name at least a handful of fans that would make the trip. Kitchener's an easy drive, great city. Obviously, when you ask any player in the OHL about their favorite rink, the odd comes up so often. So I know just from a player-parent perspective, anytime you get it in central Ontario, central southern Ontario, you're going to see a wave of navy and gold. So I'm really excited about that aspect too, because I already know there's been a lot of our staff who's talked about driving separately. There's been a lot of fans who have already mentioned, trying to get travel groups together. So I think that's going to be a big thing. And I think especially for some of those Western Toronto families, or even the families in the Niagara region, not too far of a drive to get to Kitchener. So I think I definitely think there's going to be a decent contingent. Obviously, it's going to be tough because I know those Rangers fans probably bought as many tickets as quickly as they could, but don't be surprised if you see a few of the Otters logos in the stands.
Quick thoughts on Mike Farwell and Lindsay Eastwood. And does Kitchener really have the best media press box in the entire league?
Their press box situation is really solid. Anytime I can get a private room, I'm happy. Their media room with their food offerings, their accommodations, it's you can give a solid nod to the Saginaw Spirit. They do a bang up job, but I feel like you have to give it to Kitchener, because anytime you go, I almost hope always that we get to the game 3 or 3.5 hours early, just so I can spend a little time in their media room, just because it's comfortable, it's warm, it's bright. There's so many good people in there, and the food is second to none. Farwell and Lindsay Eastwood. We'll start with Mike Farwell. He is almost in many ways the face and the voice of the Ontario Hockey League, just between the OHL podcast, his Fridays with Farwell, and it helps. He is such a nice guy, very talented, very good at what he does, and has just oozing amounts of passion for this league. So anytime I get the chance to see him and see that smiling face and hear that dulcet tone, I'm always happy about it. So I was pretty fired up to get another, hopefully 4 to 7 games between our teams and being able to share the airwaves with them. And then Lindsay, former professional hockey player, coming in first year as a communications manager, doing the unenviable task of filling in or taking over the role rather for Dom Hennig, who I thought did a tremendous job, not just there, but in Flint. And you would never be able to tell that there was a change, because she just runs such a tight ship. She's as professional as they come. Again, I talked about how they've run a first-class operation from a media perspective and a communications and PR perspective. She's second to very few in the Ontario Hockey League. So from that perspective, I know we've already been in conversation a lot early this week, just from or with some logistical operations and some spacing and staffing. And it's nice to be able to work with people who take their job very seriously and really try and run a first class operation. And Lindsay's certainly one of those people.
I'm going to see if I can try to get a media pass for game 2, because I think out of all the series in the Western Conference in the first round, I think Erie Kitchener has the best possibility of going 6 or even 7. And I see at least 1 or 2 of these games possibly going to overtime.
Yeah, no, I definitely see it, and I certainly hope so. I know our teams have only met once in the postseason. I know that it was a 6-game series then. Erie had won the first 2 games at Kitchener. I certainly hope that happens again, but I hope the end result of it's a little bit different.
All right, Shawn, I just got a couple more quick questions for you. What are some keys for a first round series win against the Kitchener Rangers, and how important is that first period going to be against Kitchener, being at the odd in front of 7,000 people?
Yeah, I think keys are going to just be special teams. That's going to be critical, I think, for the Otters. I think when they've done really well, it's no secret in hockey, but their power play and their penalty kill are both operating highly. So I think that's going to be something that if they can get off on the right foot on either of those operations, it's going to help out tremendously. The defense is going to be critical. Again, there are so many lethal scorers: Carson Rakoff, Philip Mishar, Hunter Brustevich, Matthew Andonovsky, up and down the roster, guys that you can talk about. You want to limit them as much as you can. And then I think what we've started to see is that when Erie gets a goal, they start to pile on goals. I think it's been minimum 4 goals in the last 5 or 6 games for the Erie Otters. So if they can get out to get the offense going early, it just becomes consecutive. So I think the big things that it's going to take is don't let the moment or the pressure be too big. Play your style of hockey that's gotten you to be here in 5th place in the Western Conference, and make sure you take care of the small details, because in the playoffs, those are the things that mount into successes or failures.
Do you feel the team might be a little nervous when they get out on the ice for that first period?
Absolutely. No, I certainly think so. I think, you talk about our overagers with Brett Bracetto and Johnson, even Ethan Frazier being a 21-year-old rookie. This is an atmosphere that in their major junior career, they've never been in. They've never been in the postseason. You play 68 games in a season where every game is important, sure, especially now at this time of the year where you're talking about potential points and seeding and everything. But now when you're in the postseason, it quite literally comes down to, if we don't win this game, we change a lot of the trajectory of how this series can go. So I certainly think that there's going to be a lot of nerves, but I think the benefit for these guys is short-term memory and just being able to have the amnesia of, hey, once the puck drops, it's another hockey game. And the pressure is going to be a little more, the spotlight's going to be a little brighter, but if we can do our thing, if we can play our game, they're going to be able to settle in pretty quickly.
Quickly, who do you think could be an X factor for the Erie Otters in this series?
I really think that it's either going to be Sam Alfano or Martin Misiak. I think Martin Misiak obviously had the overtime winner, but since he scored an empty netter to close the deal in Niagara, he has scored goals in 5 straight games. And when he's going, and that second line is going of him, Andre Molnar, and Bruce McDonald, they're tough to match, man. But that Sam Alfano line too, when you got Pano Femus, who was the leading scorer on this team, Dylan Edwards, who is probably the hottest scorer of the second half, and then Sam Alfano, who is really becoming a very solid, very threatening, big-bodied offensive player. If that line gets going, they're going to be really tough to stop. So I think it's going to be either of those 2 guys to be the catalyst for success on their lines. And I think finally, if you get Kerry Tarrant's back, he's going to have a hunger. He's going to have a fire. He's going to know that, he came up short of getting that 30-goal plateau that he wanted to get and that he was able to get last year. So I think he's going to try and make quick work of the postseason and get his goals where he can.
Before I wrap this up, Stan Butler has been around for a long time, but since he's taken over the Otters, what has it been his biggest strengths with this team? Is it just his experience or being able to communicate with the players?
It's a mix, I think, but I think the biggest thing probably is cleaning up small details, just in the manner of how you keep the bus, what's the cleanliness of the bus when you get off of it? How are you treating yourself as a player? How are you treating your teammates? I think these small things have been things that seem only really relevant off the ice, but when you focus on, all right, let's get all the food bags out of the way of the aisle on the bus, and let's clean up the bus when we get off, and let's make sure there's no trash in our operation area as clean as possible. Then you carry that over into the actual on ice activities and say, okay, those small details matter as well. Take that extra second to make sure that your pass that you're sending off to your teammate, it's not a blind pass into a heavy traffic area, but it's a smart pass that's going to lead to high opportunity. So I think those details are a big thing of it. But I also think that with Stan, he just has an understanding of the game in such a deep sense that you can only get from being around. And I think what he carried that, to no fault of their own, our last couple of head coaches lacked was, just the experience to be able to say, hey, players like, Sidney Crosby, that's a guy that I've coached before. And I think, that resonates with a lot of the players when you can look at Stan's pedigree and say, I have graduated these players into National Hockey League careers, into opportunities to win at the international level. I think when you say that, there's a lot more buy-in for the players and knowing, hey, if I listen to this guy, I might actually be successful. And I think that's gone a long way. And I think the way that he's known and understood how to communicate with his coaches in being able to get the best out of a player out of their specific role. I think a guy like Alex Messier is a good example, Caleb Smith, Sam Alfano, kind of the guys who play more of a big-bodied aggressor role. The fact that they're also goal scorers or becoming goal scorers is a testament to the fact that they're not just big bodies, but they're big bodies who know how to impose and drive the net. So I think it's a mix of things for Stan, but I think, between him and the coaches that he's got on the bench alongside him, it's one of the reasons that this team is a dangerous one going into the postseason.
And finally, I just wanted to get your quick thoughts on the other Western Conference matchups: London versus Flint, Saginaw versus Owen Sound, and Sioux versus Guelph.
Yeah, London Flint. Unfortunately, if I had to predict a series that I think was going to go in 4 games, maybe 5 games, I would say it's that one. Flint's hit a cold streak at the wrong time. They're missing quite a few key players. And then London's just a buzzsaw. They're a wrecking ball. And they want to get business taken care of quick because they know they're going to face someone even tougher in round 2. So I think that one's, unfortunately for my friends in Flint, I think that one's going to end a little sooner than all the other series. Saginaw, Owen Sound, it's a perplexing one. Owen Sound's a tough barn to play in. I can tell you that from the 3 times we've played there this year. It's a little more travel than Saginaw is typically used to, with them being in the Midwest and Saginaw being in the West Division. And Owen Sound is a team that can either be really hot or really cold. And if you see freshman Carter George out there in net for his first ever playoff run, I feel like the bright lights are going to shine on him positively. Now, that being said, Saginaw is a complete team. Saginaw was one bad game from the London Knights away from winning the Hamilton Spectator Trophy. So this is going to be a tough series, but Saginaw is going to win this series, I would say. Most likely 5. I think Owen Sound steals one at the Bay Shore, but I could see 6. I wouldn't be surprised by 6, but I'm leaning more toward 5. Sioux and Guelph it's a coin flip of a series, really. I think Sioux has shown at times that they're incredibly lethal and dangerous, and they've had good goal scoring, good goaltending, but at the same time, I think Guelph should be better than they are, and I think now that they're going into the postseason and they are getting a few pieces back, with Michael Bushinger coming back, I think that's another series that has a little bit of the same intrigue of our series with Kitchener, where I think it's going to go past 5. I think that's probably one I would say a stronger 6 on. I think if I were guessing, I'd probably say Sioux is going to eke it out just with the consistency that Guelph has had in the second half. But it's going to be a good series, and don't be surprised if Guelph steals one of them up in the Sioux.
Absolutely. For me, I'm going to go with the Knights. Saginaw, obviously, I'm going to go with Sault Ste. Marie. I was born there, so that's my hometown
Okay.
where I was birthed. Born there in 1972. So I'm going to go with those teams. And in the East, I'm going to quickly go over with this quick. Oshawa Berry, I got to go with the Generals. North Bay Kingston, I'm going to go with Kingston in an upset. Brantford and Ottawa, got to go with the 67s, and Mississauga Sudbury. I'm going to go with the Wolves.
Yeah, the series out in the East. The East itself was such an interesting conference this year because I think what it came down to the last week, there were 5 or 6 teams who were all vying for the opportunity to win the Eastern Conference, and obviously, I think I saw a stat. Oshawa won 31 of their last 47 games or some ridiculous number like that. Um, I mean, frankly, what can you say about the job done over there? And I think that's one of the reasons that when you're talking about Coach of the Year conversations, that you're putting Derek Laxdal in the conversation. Jacob Oster, I feel is one of the best goaltenders in the OHL. That's no secret, and that's not a surprise to anybody. But that being said, outside of Oshawa and Barrie being a pretty chalk series, I would say, I agree. It gets tough. North Bay has shown they have a lot of talented pieces. Their goaltending plays really good. I think Ryan Olahan's a terrific coach in the Eastern Conference, but Kingston's also a hungry team that they didn't exactly sneak into the postseason. So that's going to be a good one. Brantford, Ottawa. I mean, Ottawa was the winners of the regular season title last year, and I think they have some unfinished business as well. Obviously, Brantford got a multitude of pieces and a ravenous fan base there. So that's going to be a solid series. And then Mississauga Sudbury is just a coin flip. Again, I think Sudbury should have finished the season higher than they did, but 4-5-1 finish kind of cooled things off for them. Mississauga, obviously, hot finish, great start. People were talking about them at the beginning of the season being a team that could win the Eastern Conference behind, unbelievable goaltending in Jack Ivankovic and Ryerson Leanders. And they've got a lot of pieces there. And it's their last season in Mississauga, so you want to go out with a bang before you move, 5 minutes, 10 minutes north to Brampton. It's going to be really intriguing to see. And I'm more excited to see how the East shakes out in round 1, whereas in the West, I feel like it's going to be more chalk, despite the final results of that 4-5 matchup.
You know what? I am so happy Brantford got a team back because they had the Brantford Alexanders back in 78 to 84. And I just think the community now is ready to support a team. And I think personally they'll be there long term. And how did you like the one game you were there this year?
Well, we got the pleasure and the benefit of being there on Family Day, so it was packed to the very edges of the arena. It's frankly impressive to see what they've done to that building, turning it from basically a community rink into really a very solid, albeit smaller, OHL rink. And I agree with what you're saying. I think they have a terrific owner in Michael Andelauer, who's dedicated to making sure that his organization is one of the best. And I have to agree. Seeing the passion of the fan base of Brantford and seeing the way that they were welcome, that's not to say that the fans in Hamilton, especially during their run to the Memorial Cup, were not passionate and loud and made that a pretty aggressive environment at the First Ontario Center. But I agree. Brantford, very, very deserving of an organization and a team there. And, I'm happy for my friend Reed Duthie and the entire team over there. Of course, obviously, a former Otter coach and Jay McKee also behind the bench. So we've always got a soft spot for the Bulldogs over there. And great to see what they're doing. And hopefully, hopefully a season that can extend a little bit for them.
And their press box is a little bit safer than the one at the First Ontario Center. I hated going over that catwalk.
Yeah, I feel like if I fell out of the press box at the Brantford Civic Center, that I'd probably just get a bruise. And I think the alternative at the First Ontario Center would be a little more deadly.
finally, Shawn, where can my audience follow you and the Erie Otters on social media and website? And are you going to be calling the games in Kitchener by yourself, or are you going to have an analyst with you?
Yeah, so you can keep up with the Otters on our Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Hallie Giebel, our digital marketing manager, does a great job in bringing you the freshest information. I know she's going to be in Kitchener for Game 1, so we're awful excited for that. And yeah, for postseason, home games, I'll have my trusty broadcast assistant, Trevor Kubea. I know he's talked about driving up to Kitchener for Game 2. And if it goes a little longer to a Game 5 or to a Game 7, I fully anticipate that he'll be there. But, I think we're going to have a lot of fun this postseason with our broadcast. We've got a lot of cool content planned. We got a lot of fun new ways to activate the broadcast. And it's first time in 7 years. So, we really got to make a big deal out of it.
7 years, that long?
Yeah,
Wow.
it's been a long time coming. Patient fan base, but ready to get loud when we come home.
And what time is your broadcast Friday night? And for those that can listen online as well.
So broadcast on Friday, we typically do a 20-minute pregame show, might do a 30-minute, so either 6:30 or 6:40. Fans can listen to our radio network. If they're local to it, they can find out more information on chl.ca/ohl-otters/listen_live. It's a little bit of a mouthful. Or to make it easier for the fans during all of our away games this this postseason, we are going to be doing our live radio broadcast as a hybrid model where it's video for pregame, intermission, and postgame, and then audio only for in-game live on our Facebook page. Just because we want to make it a little more interactive, we want to make sure that the most people can find it without having to search for it. So just go to the Otters Facebook page for Game 1 or 2, and you'll see yours truly.
And how's the ticket sales going for the Otters so far for games 3 and 4?
Really strong, actually. We were a little concerned with having midweek games, but we have a pay as we play package where people commit to every round of the playoffs. If we advance, they pay to basically have season tickets for the postseason. And we've sold a pretty healthy amount of those. Single game tickets went on sale earlier this week, and tickets are moving pretty good. So we're excited. I know the fans, like I said, they've been waiting a long time. They've been patient, and I expect Tuesday at the EIA to be a pretty raucous environment.
Well, I'll tell you what, if I can get a media pass for Sunday's game in Kitchener, I will definitely come say hi. But I want to say thank you so much, Shawn, for coming on my show a third time. I apologize for keeping you over 35 minutes, but I really enjoyed talking to you. And good luck to the Erie Otters. And I'm looking forward to this playoff run from the Ontario Hockey League as well. And I want to get down to Erie again because it's a great sports city and it's just a nice area. And I really like that area.
Well, whenever we can make your acquaintance and have the pleasure of hosting you, please let me know. But if you can make it to the game on Sunday, I certainly look forward to seeing you. And my many thanks as always for having me on for a third time. I hope there's a fourth time in the future.
Absolutely, Shawn. And safe travels to Kitchener. And fingers crossed, I'll be able to pop by and see you Sunday in the press box at the Odd. But again, I want to say thank you so much for coming on. And good luck to you and the Erie Otters against those Kitchener Rangers.
Thank you, sir. Much obliged.
Thanks, Shawn. Have a great day.
You as well.
Happy Easter, by the way.
Thank you. You as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, guys, that was season 7, episode 52, overall 382 of Live with CDP Sports Talk, brought to you by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership here in Guelph. That was Shawn Bednard. He is the TV and radio play-by-play announcer for the Erie Otters, and he's also the director of communications and the outreach programs for the Erie Otters as well. And Game 1 of the Erie Kitchener series starts on Friday, March 29th, 7 o'clock face-off at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium. And you can catch that game on Rogers TV as well as the Rangers Radio Network and the Erie Otters Radio Network as well. Before we wrap up our show, guys, I'm going to show you a little clip of last week where I did some public speaking for the Business Education Partnership of Waterloo Region Bureau's Speakers Bureau. And I want to say thank you to Jennifer and Melissa Church for arranging this opportunity. I'm going to play this clip right now for my YouTube channel. Chris, by the way, and I'm working on my second career right now. By the way, I'm not a professional speaker, so I'm doing the best I can. My story was when I was your age in high school, I did okay in school, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I ended up taking law and security at Mohawk College. It was a good 2-year program. And then I ended up working in corporate security for 23 and a half years. And for the most part, it was a good experience. But during the pandemic, I had a taste of broadcasting through doing volunteer work, by the way. Volunteer work is really important. And being at the right place at the right time, I ended up doing some camera work for the Guelph Nighthawks, which led me to going to Rogers TV to do more camera work. And then during the pandemic, I turned a negative situation into a new career, basically, by starting up my own podcast, which has now led me to being on 2 radio stations, one in Georgia and one in Windsor, Ontario. And it's changed my life, and I'm very passionate about it. My former career in security helped me for this because I had to deal with a lot of people and talk to people and listen. And besides my radio show, I do freelance media work for the Toronto Argonauts, the Buffalo Bisons, and the National Lacrosse League champion Buffalo Bandits. So I get to interview coaches and players and talk to fans, and it's something I have a passion for. And it took me 47 years to find my passion, but it's never too late. Age is just a number. And in any career or any small business you start, you're going to have your successes and your setbacks. I don't believe in the word failure. I believe in the word setback, and you always learn from your setbacks. So I've had a lot of successes so far, but my story is not complete. I still got a long ways to go, but this is something I really enjoy, and I love being on the radio every night for 2 hours. And I never thought 4 years ago I would even be up here speaking to high school students about what I'm doing, but it's never too late. And don't let people stop you from doing what you want to do. Mindset is very important, and believe in yourself. And life doesn't always go 100% in my case, but it's never too late. And one thing I've learned too, never judge anyone by their age. Judge them by their personality and character. And this is something I have a passion for, and I get to talk to guys in the NFL, the CFL, and when I talk to people, I talk to them like I'm talking to you. And I've also learned how to do listening skills as well, because listening is just as important as talking as well. And again, I believe my former career in a way led to this career path, and just being over 50 now, by the way, it's not a big deal anymore. And I work with people that are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 60s, 70s. And what I love about this profession I'm doing is I'm constantly learning something. I learn from other people, I take feedback, and I don't take anything personally. And one word I would use, never get complacent. Whatever you're doing in a career, never get complacent. If you feel like you're getting complacent, then it's time to move on to something else. But passion is very important, and I'm sorry I'm rambling on. It's just this is what I like to do, and I'm glad to be here today. And I hope I can help some of you guys. And don't let people ever tell you can't do something, okay? And just believe in yourself and positive mindset, and just work hard too, and keep improving every day, daily.
Thank you, Chris.
That was courtesy of my YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, you can check out Chris Palme Live with CDP Sports Talk. And I want to say thank you again to the Business and Education Partnership of Waterloo Region for that opportunity last week to speak to some local high school students about my new career in radio and media. And you can always switch careers no matter what age you are in life. All right, guys, my next live with CDP Sports Talk, brought to you by Barry Cullen Chevrolet here in Guelph, is going to be Thursday, March 28th at 7 p.m. My special guest will be Greg Eno. This will be his second appearance on my show. He is a Detroit sports historian, and he's also the co-host of the Knee Jerks podcast. And Greg is in the Detroit area, so he's followed all the Detroit sports teams for many decades. Greg's going to come on, and we're going to talk about the 23-24 Detroit Red Wings, the additions of Alex DeBrincat, Patrick Kane this year, and if this team, which has lost 10 out of the last 13 games, can still get into the playoff spot for the first time in 8 years. And the Red Wings are coming off a 4-3 loss last night to the Capitals in Washington. A huge loss. And the Red Wings' next game is Thursday night at Carolina. And Greg's also going to come on and talk about the 2024 Detroit Tigers. If this 2024 Detroit Tiger team is ready to be over 500 team, and if they can compete for the American League Central, which is a little bit weaker than the other divisions. And I'm cautiously optimistic this Tigers team can win the AL Central and win maybe 85 to 87 games. So looking forward to it. So Greg Eno will come on tomorrow and talk Red Wings and Tigers with us, and his latest on his Knee Jerks podcast as well. And please check it out. Greg is one of the best guys I've met here on Twitter, X, and I'm excited to have Greg back on my show again as well. Live with CDP Sports Talk is now available on CKRT, Border City Radio in Windsor, weeknights from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern. You can check out our radio's website at CKRT.BorderCityRadio.com. And my next episode will be on tonight, 7 o'clock. And CKRT Radio is a soft rock station playing the best from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. As always, guys, Live with CDP Sports Talk is a weekly sports and entertainment talk show hosted by yours truly, Chris Palme. Is also on weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern on radio station WQEE 99.1 FM, the home of Southern sports and talk, the heartbeat of Atlanta. Our radio station's website is WQEEFM.radio12345.com. Make sure you check out Live with CDP Sports Talk tonight at 8 o'clock on WQEE 99.1 FM. Live with CDP Sports Talk is live streamed on these platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter /X, Twitch, LinkedIn, and now available on Instagram. You can also check out my website at beacons.ai/Chris D. Palme as well. Live with CDP Sports Talk, again, is sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles, or you can give them a call at 519-824-0210 or email them at info@barrycullen.com. Speaking of Barry Cullen Chevrolet right now, there's 0% financing for up to 60 months or $10,000 off a select Silverado 1500 crew cabs at Barry Cullen Chevrolet. More details at barrycullen.com. I am also a content creator on TikTok. Yes, I'm on TikTok. You can follow me there at Live with CDP, at TikTok. And I want to say thank you to my 2,050 followers. And you check out all my digital content there as well. StreamYard is the official live stream provider of Live with CDP Sports Talk. If you're into webinars or podcasting such as yours truly, check out StreamYard.com. And if you're a business that does a lot of webinars or live streaming, again, check out StreamYard.com and contact the sales department for business pricing as well. And I've been with StreamYard now for 3.5 years, and they provide great customer service. And to me, they are the #1 live streaming service out there. Live with CDP Sports Talk, the audio version is available on these platforms: iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Spotify for podcasters, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Spotify, Castbox, LinkedIn, Pandora, and Tuned In. Finally, you can email or text Live with CDP Sports Talk at cpalme19@gmail.com, or you can text the show at 820-7188. Comments, questions, suggestions, any feedback would be greatly appreciated. And I want to say thank you to everyone watching this live stream today, as well as audio platforms and on the radio stations, WQEE 99.1 FM and CKRT in Border City Radio in Windsor. And finally, guys, I do some volunteer work here. Check out the Cambridge and District Humane Society at 1650 Dunbar Road in Cambridge, Ontario. You can call them at 519-623-7722, or you can visit their website at cambridgehumanesociety.org. That's cambridgehumanesociety.org. If you're looking to volunteer, go through that website. And if you're also looking for your forever pet and friend, and you're in the Cambridge and District area, I would check out the Cambridge District Humane Society. Again, 1650 Dunbar Road in Cambridge. And again, their phone number is 519-623-7722. And I'm looking forward to walking some more dogs there tomorrow afternoon in Cambridge. And that's about it, guys. As for the OHL playoffs, they start this weekend. We've got Kitchener and Erie. I've got Erie winning that series in 6 games. London over Flint in 4. Saginaw over Owen Sound in 5. And I've got Sioux over Guelph in 4 games. And in the East, I'm going with Oshawa over Barrie in 5 games. North Bay over Kingston in 6 games. And Brantford over Ottawa in 7 games. And Mississauga Sudbury, I think, will go 5 games as well. I hope everybody has a great evening. And again, I want to say thank you to Shawn Bednard, the TV and radio play-by-play announcer for the Erie Otters, for coming on here today. He's also the director of communications for the Erie Otters and their outreach program. And again, Erie Kitchener series starts Friday, March 29th, 7 o'clock face-off at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium. And you can get that game on Rogers TV or the Kitchener Rangers radio network or the Erie Otters radio network as well. I hope everybody has a great afternoon, and we'll see you back here tomorrow for season 7, episode 53 with Greg Eno. Thursday nights at 7 o'clock, we'll be talking Red Wings hockey and Detroit Tigers baseball. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Again, thank you for everyone watching this live and also on audio. And again, thank you to Barry Cullen Chevrolet for sponsoring this, and WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia, and CKRT Border City Radio in Windsor. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening to Live with CDP Sports Talk. Have a great afternoon, great evening, and we'll see you back here tomorrow at 7 o'clock.